Imagine waking at 3 in the morning because the house is making a sound. Not a bang, not a siren, a low, steady vibration, like a diesel engine idling somewhere beyond the walls. You check the refrigerator, you switch off the fan, you open the window. Outside, the street is empty. You ask the person sleeping beside you, "Do you hear that?" They hear nothing. That is the unsettling part of the hum. It is not one officially identified sound. It is a name given to reports of persistent, low-frequency humming or rumbling, often heard by one person while everyone nearby hears silence. And this story is older than the internet, older than recording equipment, and possibly older than the word hum itself. The hum has been reported in Britain, North America, Australia, New Zealand, and Europe. People describe it as a distant engine, a generator, a factory fan, or a vibration they can feel more than hear. But the cases do not line up neatly. Some are measurable. Some vanish when a machine is shut down. Some cannot be found outside the listener's own perception. So the real question is not, what is the hum? It is, which hum are we talking about? To see why that matters, we have to go back almost 2,000 years, to a statue that was said to sing at dawn. West of modern Luxor stand two enormous statues of the Egyptian pharaoh Amenhotep XIII. They were completed around 1350 BCE, but Roman visitors knew the northern statue by another name, Memnon. In 27 BCE, an earthquake damaged that statue. Afterward, ancient travelers claimed that its broken remains made a sound around sunrise, sometimes compared to a light blow, sometimes to a plucked string or a thin metallic note. The Greek geographer Strabo wrote that he heard it himself around 20 BCE. He also admitted he could not tell whether the sound came from the statue, its base, or someone standing nearby. That uncertainty is what makes the story feel modern. Visitors left inscriptions saying whether they had heard the voice. Some treated it as an oracle. Others heard nothing at all. The leading natural explanation is simple. Cool nighttime air, moisture, and warming stone may have produced a brief resonance inside the cracked quartzite. Later, the damaged statue was repaired. The reports of singing stopped. The vocal memnon was not the modern hum. It was intermittent, tied to a particular structure, and recorded in a very different world. But it gives us the oldest pattern in this story, a sound that some people swear is real, a physical object that may be involved, and a mystery made larger by the people who cannot hear it. In the 1970s, Bristol became one of Britain's most famous hum cases. Residents described a low, throbbing background noise, often worse at night and difficult to locate. Newspapers turned the complaints into a national hunt. One campaign received roughly 800 letters from people reporting similar sounds. Theories multiplied: factories, fans, farm machinery, even UFOs. But no single source was accepted as the answer. That is important. Bristol did not prove a worldwide hum. It showed how quickly a local complaint could become a shared mystery, and how publicity could make separate experiences sound like one phenomenon. Then came a case where scientists tried to measure the mystery from the beginning. In Taos, New Mexico, residents reported a sound for more than 2 years before a major investigation in 1993. The research team checked for airborne sound, seismic vibration, and electromagnetic signals. The results were strangely negative. No unusual signal explained what residents were reporting, but the listeners could still describe the sound. When researchers asked them to match its pitch with signal generators, they chose low frequencies from about 33 to 80 hertz. That spread matters. It suggests that the Taos Hum was not necessarily one single tone heard by everyone. The team considered unusually sensitive hearing and sounds produced by the ear itself. At the time, one researcher rejected the idea that the complaints were simply psychological. The investigation did not solve Taos. It made the mystery more precise. A sound can be real to a listener without appearing as one obvious signal in the air. Kokomo, Indiana, offered a different kind of evidence. In a 2003 investigation, Ascentech engineers measured tones at some homes while residents were reporting symptoms. One tone was 36 Hz. It was traced to a cooling tower at the Daimler-Chrysler casting plant. Another was a 10 Hz tone linked to an air compressor intake at Haynes International. The engineers followed the 36 Hz signal as it grew louder near the cooling tower and faded with distance. That is the sort of trail investigators hope for. A measurable frequency, a plausible machine, and a direction. But the same report also found that residents' descriptions varied widely. Some heard a sound, some felt vibration, and some heard nothing that the instruments could measure. The two industrial tones explained part of Kokomo, not necessarily every complaint. The hum had now acquired two faces, a machine in the outside world, and a perception that did not always obey the machine. In 2011, residents of Windsor, Ontario, began reporting a deep vibration across the Detroit River. Canadian investigators documented the signal, and later studies pointed toward U.S. Steel's facility on Zug Island. The suspected mechanism was blast furnace activity, making the plant's metal foundations reverberate. Access to the island was difficult, so the perfect recording was hard to obtain. For years, the source remained a strong theory rather than a neat laboratory proof. Then came the closest thing to a natural experiment. In 2020, the plant idled major operations. According to the lead Canadian researcher, reports of the hum practically vanished afterward. That does not prove every hum is industrial. It does show why Windsor is one of the strongest physical cases. When the suspected source went quiet, the city's mystery largely went quiet with it. And sometimes the answer is stranger than a steel mill. In Sausalito, California, residents living on houseboats reported a nighttime hum. The source was eventually linked to male midshipman fish, whose mating calls can travel through the water and resonate through boat hulls. It sounds absurd until you remember how low frequencies behave. A sound that is faint in open air can become impossible to ignore when a structure amplifies it. This case is a useful warning. A mysterious hum may be a factory, a ship, a fish, a building vibrating, or several causes being grouped under one dramatic name. Low-frequency sound is difficult to track. Walls, floors, windows, and temperature layers can change how it travels. A room can amplify one frequency and hide another. At night, when ordinary background noise drops, a distant source becomes easier to notice. Human hearing also varies. People do not have identical thresholds, and some listeners may feel vibration as well as hear tone. There is another possibility. The sound may be generated or interpreted inside the auditory system. Tinnitus is not limited to a high-pitched ring. It can involve humming, pulsing, or a low drone. That explanation is not an insult, and it is not a universal answer. It is a medical hypothesis, one that can exist alongside genuine external noise. In March 20th, 26, a peer-reviewed P5OS1E study examined 28 people who reported persistent low-frequency sound perceptions. The researchers tested their hearing thresholds and looked for low-frequency spontaneous otoacoustic emissions, sounds produced by the inner ear. Most participants did not have unusually sensitive low-frequency hearing. The researchers also found no low-frequency otoacoustic emissions that could explain the reports. Their conclusion was cautious. Subjective low-frequency tinnitus may often be involved, but external sound sources were not ruled out. There is a limitation worth saying aloud. The participants came from a hum-focused social media group, so this was a small, selected sample, not a verdict on everyone who hears a hum. The study changes the mystery instead of ending it. The question is no longer only, where is the machine? It is also, what does the brain do with a sound that may be faint, variable, or partly internal? The most honest answer is that there may be no single hum. Bristol shows how reports spread without a confirmed source. Taos shows how instruments can fail to find the signal people describe. Kokomo shows that real industrial tones can explain some complaints. Windsor shows a suspected source disappearing when a steelworks shuts down. Sausalito shows that nature can build its own subwoofer. And the 2026 study suggests that, in many unexplained cases, the auditory system may be part of the story. None of those facts cancels the others. So return to that bedroom at 3 in the morning. Maybe a compressor is running miles away. Maybe the building is resonating. Maybe the sound is crossing water, steel, or desert air. Maybe your ears and brain are producing a perception no microphone in the room can capture. The mystery is not that nobody has an answer. It is that several answers can be true, for different people, in different places, at different times. Because sometimes the hardest sound to explain is not the one nobody can find. It is the one only you can hear.